walk out with that. Okay. So let's go, Chevra. You going to join us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Okay. Great. So if you remember, the last thing that we were grappling with was the statement of the statement of this Tana that Rav quieted down. In other words, Rav made the statement and the Tana quieted him down, and Tana made the statement, Rav quieted him down, and the Gemara is trying to figure out why is it that Rav quieted him down. So we're on 15a3, Tesvav Amud Aleph. But first we said perhaps he quieted him down because he didn't hold like Rebbe Meir. You know, Rav held like Rebbe Yehuda, not like Rebbe Meir. We know that from our Mishnah. Maybe that's why he quieted him down. The Gemara said, no, it's not feasible that Rav would quiet down a dissenting opinion. It's not because he felt, not because he didn't hold like Rebbe Meir that he quieted this guy down. Well, maybe the Gemara suggests then that it was in public that this guy was teaching. And by the way, we know that for his own Talmidim, right, Rebbe Yehuda, Rav was Mekil like Rebbe Meir. For his own Talmidim, what does Rebbe Meir say? Rebbe Meir says that if you cooked inadvertently on Shabbos, right, Hamavashel b'Shabbos, if you cooked inadvertently on Shabbos, so you would be able to eat it, and everybody else would be able to eat it. That's Rebbe Meir's opinion. So Rav would tell his Talmidim that that's the halacha, but when Rav lectured in public, he wouldn't say that was the halacha. Why? Because he was worried that if he would say that would be the halacha, then people would not take Shabbos seriously. People would say, oh, it doesn't really matter if I cook or don't cook. If I cook, whatever. If I cook, I can eat it anyway. So Rav taught the more stringent opinion of Rebbe Yehuda in his public lectures. The most stringent opinion was the opinion of Rebbe Yochanan HaSambar. So Rav didn't teach that, but he did teach the stringent opinion of Rebbe Yehuda. So maybe the reason that Rav quieted this Tana down was because it was in a public lecture. It was in a public lecture. Rav was teaching the opinion of Rebbe Yehuda. What did this Tana do? This Tana got up and said over Rebbe Meir's position. And Rav, who avoids saying over Rebbe Meir's position in public because he doesn't want people to take Shabbos lightly, so Rav quieted him down, right?
Why wouldn't the guy telling the Brisa just come out and say, this is Rav Meir's position?
Why
did he have to be cryptic about it? Why didn't he just say?
He wasn't being cryptic.
Well, he didn't say, he wasn't attributing it to a Tana.
You mean the one who Rav quieted down, exactly. Wasn't attributing it to a Tana?
Why don't you just say, according to Rav this, like if we give it a Dvar Torah or something, I'd say, okay, Rabbi Palakov said X, Y, Z.
Right? He didn't say who it was. And I'm not sure why he didn't say it was. Hi Simon, I'm not sure why he didn't say who it was, but whatever it was, he didn't say who it was. I'm not sure why he was so cryptic about it. But the bottom line is that he was. So the Gemara rejects that reason as well, because the Gemara says, listen, if you're at a public lecture and Rav is giving the lecture, who's going to pay attention to this Tana? Everybody came to hear Rav. They're going to listen to Rav. They're going to listen to the person explaining Rav. This guy gets up and says what he's going to say. Nobody's going to listen to him. So that can't be the reason either. So the Gemara wants to suggest that perhaps there was another reason. So we're at the bottom of the page. Test Vav Amid Aleph. We're at the bottom of the page. So what was the issue? So Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines up from the bottom of the page. Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Tana Shochet, Tana Kamei de Rav. In other words, when this fellow said it over, he didn't say Hamavashel b'Shabbos, like Rebbe Meir's position. What did he say? Hashochet b'Shabbos. Right? Tana shochet Tana kamei derab. Hashochet b'Shabbos b'shogeg yochal b'mezid lo yochal. All right? So in other words, that's what he said. The Gemara, which quoted him earlier, quoted him as saying hamavashel. The Gemara now concludes that's not what he said. He wasn't talking about someone who was mavashel on Shabbos. He was talking about someone who was shochet on Shabbos. So what he did is he took Rebbe Meir's position in hamavashel, and he simply applied it to hashochet b'Shabbos. Now the question is, can you do that? In other words, Rebbe Meir has this lenient opinion. Rebbe Meir says, listen, if I cook inadvertently on Shabbos, you know what inadvertently means, right? What's it mean?
I like by mistake.
Good.
By accident.
If I cook, why did I even ask? Right? If I cook by accident or by mistake on Shabbos, so Rebbe Meir, the halacha is, I can eat it. I can eat it and other people can eat it. So this Tana came along and took Rebbe Meir's conclusion, and instead of saying hamavashel, he said hashochet. Because maybe in his mind he thought those were the same thing. In other words, hamavashel is a violation of Shabbos and hashochet is a violation of Shabbos. So if Rebbe Meir says hamavashel on Shabbos, he can eat and others can eat, so this Tana thinks it's logical that hashochet b'Shabbos, what should the halacha be? What should the halacha be? Let's go. Right, one more time. Rebbe Meir says, hamavashel b'Shabbos. We know this is Rebbe Meir's position. There's no question. Everybody agrees this is Rebbe Meir's position. Hamavashel b'Shabbos. Person who cooks inadvertently on Shabbos, you can eat it and everybody else can eat it. Right? Thinks this Tana to himself, listen, hamavashel, that's a violation of Shabbos. Is that really any different than hashochet? So a person who shechted inadvertently on Shabbos. So what would Rebbe Meir think? What would we think?
He could eat it and everyone else could eat it.
Why should it be any different?
Right.
In other words, if a person cooks, if Rebbe Meir says a person cooks inadvertently on Shabbos, he can eat it and everybody else can eat it. So it's logical for this Tana to assume, okay, person who shechs on Shabbos inadvertently, why should he be any different? He's right. Hamavashel is violating Shabbos. Hashochet is violating Shabbos. Should be the same thing, right? It should be the same thing, and namely what? Namely, he should be able to eat it, and everybody else should be able to eat it. And in fact, that's what the Tana taught, and that's why Rav shut him up, because we'll see now what the Gemara is saying is that you can't make that comparison. Whereas just because Rebbe Meir says that by Mavashel doesn't mean that Rebbe Meir will say it by Hashochet. And that's why Rab shut him up, okay? So let's look at the Gemara, okay? The Gemara says, Amar Le, we're now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines up from the bottom. Amar Le, Rab said to this Tana, My da'asech, right, what's your opinion? What are you thinking here? Rab said to this Tana. Ki Rebbe Meir ad kan lo kishari, Rebbe Meir? Ela b'mevashel, right? In other words, he's saying, what are you thinking here? Are you thinking that you can just transpose Rebbe Meir from hamavashel to hashochet? You can't do that, says Rav. Why? Because ad kan lo kashari Rebbe Meir ela b'mevashel. Rebbe Meir's position in mevashel, that makes sense. Why? Dera'ui lachos. What does it mean, dera'ui lachos?
The way of
Dera'ui, that it's fit, it's possible. Dera'ui lachos, to chew it, to eat it raw. In other words, let's look at this from the perspective of hamavashel. Okay, what is hamavashel? Hamavashel means I have a
food item in your cup.
I have a I don't know, I have ground meat. All right, I have ground meat, and or I have raw chicken in a pan. I have raw chicken in a pan. Okay, or I have raw fish. I have a raw piece of salmon in a pan. okay? And I don't realize it, but I put it in the, I thought I was putting it in the warmer. It turns out I put it in the oven, right? And what happened? And it cooked.
Your sushi got cooked.
It cooked. So what halacha was violated? Cooking. Everybody agrees cooking was violated, right? No question. Cooking was violated. Did the person violate it deliberately?
No.
No. So if there was no deliberate violation of the halacha, Rebbe Meir says it's okay.
You're also not changing the chazaka.
Hold on. You can eat it and everybody else can eat it. You're not changing what
The
chazaka.
chazaka,
What chazaka.
like we were talking about before, and you give it a live animal. The chazaka is you can't eat it yet because it's not been shafted.
So this is precisely the point. That this is exactly what we're talking about here, right? And I dafka chose salmon, because we all eat sushi. I think I don't know. Maybe we all eat sushi. So what's the idea here? So this salmon, if I hadn't cooked it, I still would have been able to eat it. But even not cooked, I could have eaten it, and that would apply to other things, right? I mean, it's more logical for us to see when it comes, let's say, to salmon or tuna, I don't know. But, the truth is the same thing can be said by ground meat or even by chicken, right? Maybe it's not as easy, but you could eat it, right? You could eat it. So the only issue for Rebbe Meir to grapple with, the only issue is the issue of an inadvertent violation of Shabbos. Now, I'm not making little of that, right? An inadvertent violation of Shabbos is still a violation of Shabbos, but according to Rebbe Meir, who is the most lenient, if you inadvertently violated Shabbos, we're not going to hold it against you. We're not going to hold it against other people, certainly. So you can eat and other people can eat. Is there anything else that Rebbe Meir would have to be concerned with here? Is this piece of salmon muktzah?
No.
Why not?
Because it could be eaten.
It could be eaten. When Shabbos began, you theoretically could have eaten this piece of salmon. You might not have enjoyed it so much because maybe when you eat, if it has rice and seaweed, all right, so it's not so bad. But to sit and eat raw salmon, maybe you don't enjoy it as much, but you could have eaten it. So when Shabbos began, this was not muktzah. So Rebbe Meir does not have to deal with the issue of muktzah. He just has to deal with the issue of an inadvertent violation of Shabbos. Now, can I transpose that to Hashochet? No, why not, Elliot?
Because you can't eat the live animal.
Okay, because not only am I dealing in the case of Hashochet on Shabbos with an inadvertent violation of Shabbos, but I'm dealing with another problem. And what is that problem?
Cooking it again.
No, not cooking it again.
The cow is
Muktzah. I'm dealing with muktzah. Why am I dealing with muktzah? Because when Shabbos began, this animal was alive.
You didn't have it in mind that you're going to eat it.
I couldn't have eaten it. When Shabbos began, this animal was alive. I can't eat a live animal. I'm not allowed to eat a live animal. Right? So when Shabbos began, this animal was not considered food. And since it wasn't considered food, it is now muktzah. So says Rav to this Tana, how can you equate the two situations? Mivashel, Rebbe Meir's position, we understand. I prefer not to teach it, said Rav, because I don't want people to take it for granted, to be too lenient. That's why I teach Rebbe Yehuda in public. But to my Talmidim, I'll use Rebbe Meir. However, you, Mr. Tana, who want to just transpose Rebbe Meir from Mivashel to Hashochet, what are you doing? You can't do that. Shut up. You can't teach that. That's wrong. So it's not that Rav was shutting him up because Rav held like Rebbe Yehuda. Rav was shutting him up because Rav believed he was wrong. He was absolutely wrong. Okay? And that's what the Gemara says. Right? Right? Ad kan lo kashari, until this point, right? Up until here. Ad kan, up until here. Lo kashari Rebbe Meir ela b'mivashel. The only thing Rebbe Meir permitted was mivashel inadvertently on Shabbos. Dura'ui lachos, because there, even with the food not cooked, it's still possible to eat, albeit with difficulty, and therefore it's not muktzah. Aval, however, shochet, when it comes to the case of shochet, which is what this Tana wanted to say, The ein ra'ui lachos, where you can't eat it. Why can't you eat it? Why can't you eat it? Because it's what?
Raw.
It's not only raw, it's
alive.
walking around. It's really raw. It's walking around in your backyard. Right? When Shabbos arrived, the status of that cow was alive. And therefore it's muktzah. So Rav said Rebbe Meir never would have permitted that. In other words, Eina Chinami, it's true that in the case of inadvertent bishul, Rebbe Meir permits you to eat it right away and permits others to eat it right away. But what would Rebbe Meir say in the case of inadvertent shchita? What would he say in the case of inadvertent shchita? What would Rebbe Meir say? Could you eat it on Shabbos?
No,
Why?
because muksa.
Because of muktzah. So if you can't eat it on Shabbos because of muktzah, what do you have to do? You have to wait until Shabbos is over. You have to wait until Shabbos is over. Okay?
So if you had an Aver Min HaChai, not like you had a piece that didn't make it in the moon, then because a piece cut off of the animal
I cut off a piece of the animal Friday afternoon.
Friday afternoon, and then someone shechts it on Shabbos. Can you then eat that piece of meat? Because normally, if you shecht something, if you take a piece off before it's shechted, you can't eat it until after it's shechted. That's the end of Simcha Chadasha. At least in the current.
Also,
So what would happen?
Okay, so wait a second. So I cut off this piece of meat.
Cut off a limb.
I
cut off a limb.
I cut off a limb. Okay, it's Aver. It has a status of Aver Min HaChai.
Right, you can't eat
I
it.
can't eat it.
Yeah,
Now I shech the
So someone
behemoth.
else shecht the behemoth on Shabbos.
Somebody else shechs the behemoth on Shabbos. Right. Let's look at Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday afternoon, I cut off the limb of this animal.
Right.
Can't eat it.
Right.
All right. An hour later, somebody comes along and shechs the animal.
Now you can eat it.
Now I can eat the limb.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So let's look at it that way. Let's say I cut off this limb Erev Shabbos. And on Shabbos, somebody comes along and
Shecht
checks
the
the
animal.
animal. So what would you think? What would you think?
Well, but you're benefiting from their work on Shabbos. Okay, you already have the limb.
You're always benefit. In other words, Hamavashel, you're also benefiting from his work on Shabbos. Hamavashel b'shogeg, you're benefiting from his work
No.
on Shabbos.
No, but the animal was still muktzah
Oh,
before
so
Shabbos.
that's the
So
whole
he
point.
changed the point. He changed it, but you already
But
had
it doesn't
it.
matter. It doesn't matter because
Okay.
at what point is muktzah defined?
right when Shabbos starts.
When Shabbos
Okay.
starts. In other words, if something is muktzah when Shabbos
So it doesn't make a
starts,
difference.
even if it changes later on Shabbos, its status changes later on Shabbos, it doesn't matter. It still remains muktzah. Because if it's muktzah when Shabbos begins, it remains muktzah throughout Shabbos. This Aver Min HaChai was muktzah when Shabbos
Okay.
began. Why? Because you couldn't eat it. So it was muktzah when Shabbos began, it would remain muktzah throughout Shabbos. Okay, interesting question. Okay, but everybody see why Rob was upset with this Tana?
Yeah.
Rob was upset with this Tana because the Tana wanted to make a change from Mevashel to Shochet, and Rob said you can't do that because Shochet has an extra factor, and that extra factor is muktzah. Navid, would you mind pouring me just a little bit of water? Thank you. Okay. Okay, so says the Gemara. Okay, this is, thank you very much. Thank you. So says the Gemara, this is very nice, except we have a problem. In other words, Rav, what you're saying makes sense, except we have a problem, Rav. And what's the problem? The problem is, V'hamas nisin deshochetu. What does our Mishnah say? Well, what does our Mishnah say? Go back to our Mishnah. You can't go back. Yeah, go back. I go back to our Mishnah. What does our Mishnah say? Our Mishnah says, "Hashochet b'Shabbos u'b'Yom HaKippurim alpa pishem ischayev b'nafsho shchitaso kshera." Amar Rav Huna Dara Shchia bar Rav Mishmei de Rav Asura ba'achila liyoma. Right? Rav has this particular position, and what does Rav say? It is Asura. You're not allowed to eat it the whole day. That's what Rav
Until
says.
Shabbos.
Till Shabbos is over. But there are other people, the Nazbin Chavre, right, and the other Talmidei Chachamim who were there. They said, "Oh, he must hold like Rebbe Yehuda." What does that mean? When they say, oh, he must hold like Rabbi Yehuda, what does that mean?
That means there are other opinions.
It means they don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda. So who do they hold by?
Right.
Who do they hold by? In other words, Ein Achinami, Rav holds like Rabbi Yehuda. That's clear from the first 2 lines of our Gemara here after the Mishnah. Right?
And they
Clear.
probably didn't hold like Rabbi Yochanan.
They didn't hold like Rabbi
Probably-
Yochanan a sounder.
Right.
So they must have held like,
Rabbi Meir.
they must have held like Rabbi Meir. Wait a second. How could it be that they held like Rabbi Meir? Because based on what we just said, Rabbi Meir's position and Rabbi Yehuda's position should be the same when it comes to shochet on Shabbos. Because what does Rabbi Meir say? Rabbi Meir says, listen, the fact that you shafted on Shabbos, that you inadvertently violated Shabbos, I'm not going to hold that against you. But there's another issue here. What's the other issue? Luktzah. So based on the way Rav understood what this Tana here was saying, it's impossible for Rabbi Meir to say, if you shechted the animal on Shabbos, you can eat it and other people can eat it. Rav shut the guy up who said that. Because according to Rav, you can't say that. Because what about muktzah? You forgot about muktzah. Meaning that what really is Rabbi Meir's position when it comes to hashochet? When it comes to hamavashel, everybody agrees Rabbi Meir's position is you can eat it and they can eat it. What should be Rabbi Meir's position when it comes to hashochet? It should be you can't eat it and they can't eat it until after Shabbos. Why? Because it's muktzah. Why is it muktzah? Because when Shabbos began, the animal was alive. And yet, if we look back at our Mishnah, what do we see? We see that Rav is the Talmid Chacham who holds like Rabbi Yehuda. The others don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Who must they hold like? They must hold like Rabbi Meir. But if they hold like Rabbi Meir, didn't we say in Hashochet, Rabbi Meir would say the same thing as Rabbi Yehuda? So how is that possible? How is it possible that they hold like Rabbi Meir? You hear the question? Or not really?
Yeah.
Yeah? You hear the question? Okay. So that's what our Gemara is now asking. Let's go back to our Gemara.
Yeah, but over here, let's say Rabbi Meir, when it comes to cooking or shechting, these are biblical transgressions, and they're still permitting it. So
Because it was inadvertent.
right? But when it comes to muktzah, it's a rabbinic,
Okay.
and with rabbinic, they're always more lenient.
That's so you're saying why would Rebbe Meir permit
like
a violation
why
of
would
the
it
Oraisa?
hold them back from saying, okay, it was muktzah? Well, if we
Because again, why in Rebbe Meir's, let's go to Rebbe Meir's classical case. Rebbe Meir's classical case is Hamavasha. Right? Why does Rebbe Meir allow you to eat that right away and everybody else to eat it right away? Because it was inadvertent, right? In order for you to violate Shabbos midioraisa, it has to be a conscious violation of Shabbos. Here it was inadvertent. Hamavashel b'shogeg, right? You cooked inadvertently. If you cooked inadvertently, right, Rebbe Meir is not going to punish you and not going to punish other people. It was an inadvertent thing. If there was a Beis HaMikdash, you'd bring a carbon chatas, but we don't have a Beis HaMikdash today. So if you mevashel, so the question is, all right, I cooked inadvertently, but now what's the status of this food? So Rebbe Meir says, listen, you didn't do it on purpose. It's because you didn't do it on purpose. It's not a dioraisa violation, and therefore you can eat it and other people can eat it. We're not requiring you to be punished. We're not instituting a kanas, right? A fine, some kind of additional punishment. We're not instituting that. So it's not a problem. You can eat and other people can eat. But there's no reason for him to waive muktzah, right? In other words, muktzah should just remain in place. Ein achinami, it's true that from the perspective of bishul, you could eat it. Except there's only one problem, and that is that the rabbinic prohibition of muktzah stays in place. Right. So in other words, Simon, you want to say, if Rebbe Meir allows a dioraisa, why doesn't he allow a dirabban? That's what you want to say, right? So I'm saying to you, Rebbe Meir doesn't allow a dioraisa. What does he say? He says, since you did it b'shogeg, it's not a dioraisa violation. Yeah. Do I want to,
So could we make the argument saying, let's say if you shechted b'shogeg, then you could eat it?
No, why not? If you shechted b'shogeg, Rabbi Meir should say you can't eat it. Why? If you shechted
Because
b'shogeg.
it was muksa,
Because it was muktzah.
but if it was an inadvertent,
But inadvertent doesn't change muktzah. Inadvertent relieves you of the punishment for violating Shabbos.
Inadvertent, it was still muktzah to begin with.
Right, but inadvertent and muktzah are not connected to each other. In other words, I cooked this thing and it's sitting right here. Can I eat it? So Rabbi Meir would say, from the perspective of Isser Bisho, yes. Right? From the perspective of muktzah, since it was raw when Shabbos began and you could eat raw food, it's not muktzah now, so you can eat it. But when it comes to shechita, Rabbi Meir would say, at least the way Rab understood it here, Rabbi Meir would say, from the perspective of shechita, you didn't mean to do it was bishogeg. Okay, we're not going to punish you. You can eat it. Other people can eat it. But from the perspective of muktzah, you can't touch it. In achinami, you could eat it. If you could eat it without touching it, fine. But you can't. It's impossible. So the prohibition of muktzah kicks in and goes until Shabbos is over. And once Shabbos is
Shouldn't
over,
the prohibition of muktzah kick in to the extent of even after Shabbos is over, you're still not allowed to eat it?
why?
Because of the fact that it was muktzah?
No, because once Shabbos is over, anything which is muktzah is no longer muktzah. Remember,
Okay.
it's only
Yeah.
muktzah on Shabbos.
Yeah.
Like my cell phone is muktzah until the second Shabbos is over. Once Shabbos is over, my cell phone is no longer muktzah. Unfortunately, right? It's no longer muktzah. So that's what we're saying here. In other words, we're saying that that Rebbe Meir, when it comes to hashochet, should not allow you to eat this, not because of the bishul problem, but because of the muktzah problem. Rebbe Yehuda says you can't eat it because of the bishul problem. But Rebbe Yehuda sort of institutes a punishment, a semi-quasi punishment. Says you can't derive any benefit from this malach on Shabbos. Even though you did it for shogeg, you can't derive any benefit from it on Shabbos. He's more stringent than Rebbe Meir is. Rabbi Yochanan Sandler says you can never derive any benefit from it. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to wait till after Shabbos. Okay? But when it comes to hashochet, Rabbi Meir should seem to say, listen, if it was just the shechita part, I would let you eat it, guys. But I can't let you eat it because there's another piece here. And what's that other piece? Muktzah. But then our Gemara says, wait a second. If that indeed is Rabbi Meir's position, so who did these other rabbis hold by? So the Gemara is going to tell us, listen to this. The Gemara is going to say that the Mishnah is a very unique case. Now, I'm going to ask you to think about this. Okay? I need you to justify Rabbi Meir's position. I need you to come up with a scenario in which in other words, right now we're saying Rabbi Meir, from the perspective of shechita, would not bother you. You can eat it and other people can eat it. What's preventing Rabbi Meir from doing that? Muktzah. Come up with a scenario where the animal is alive when Shabbos begins, but it's not muktzah.
Oh, it's 11 Shabbos begins. It's not. For nefesh.
if you want to feed it to the
For
sick,
For pikuach
What'd you say?
nefesh.
feed it to the sick.
Feed it to the sick.
Or like
Pikuach
pikuach-
nefesh.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Oh, well, you read ahead,
Pikuach
huh? You
nefesh,
read ahead. All
pikuach
right.
nefesh.
Here, I was so impressed, but then you gave it away. You read ahead. Okay.
Pikuach nefesh.
So let's see if we can figure out a way that this is not muktzah, even though the animal was alive when Shabbos began. So the Gemara says in the following case, right? I have a sick person to take care of, right? A very sick person to take care of. And he is dying before Shabbos, right? And I know before Shabbos starts that I'm going to have to give this guy meat on Shabbos. And if I don't give him meat on Shabbos, he's going to die. I know that I have to give him meat on Shabbos. So if I know that I have to give him meat on Shabbos, how do I look at that cow out back? Even before Shabbos
You have an
starts,
intention to kill it.
that cow is hamburger. When I look at that cow, I don't see a live cow. What do I see?
See a dead cow.
I see a shechted cow that will give me meat to give to the sick person to keep him alive. That's the case of our Mishnah, says the Gemara. Our Mishnah is talking about a very particular case. What's the particular case? Right? The case of someone who you were in charge of, who you were responsible for, who was very sick. Pekuach nefesh sick, very sick. And this person needed to have meat. And you knew that going into Shabbos, but you didn't have a chance to shech the animal. And now you have a chance to shech the animal. But you knew going into Shabbos that you were going to shech that animal. And you were allowed to shech
Or
that
you
animal.
might.
No, you
need to
knew you
shech.
were going to have to shech that animal. Because you knew that this person needed that meat. You knew you were going to have to shech
Why
that
didn't the
animal.
Mishnah just say that outright?
Because then we would have lost like 3 pages of Gemara.
No,
Right? We have to get there. Right? We have to get
The
there.
Gemara,
Right?
it's just teaching the cases, not going over the answers.
It's what? It's
just teaching the cases,
it's
not
doing
going over
both.
the
It's doing a
answers.
little bit of both. It's
No,
giving
it's
us-
just teaching the cases, not going over the answers.
we-
It doesn't just give the answers outright. It goes ahead to answer.
Correct.
It's
It's making us think
recording.
about them.
It's recording the
Discussions. The discussions. Right. Correct.
People are having discussions. Oh, this is the halacha about this. I think the halacha is about this. But the
And that's
halacha's like
exactly
this.
what's happening here. In other words, we had to get to this point before the Gemara could say, oh, you know what that Mishnah must be talking about? Now I understand it. What must that Mishnah be talking about? That Mishnah must be talking about a special case. What's the special case?
A chola.
A chola. That's what the Mishnah says. Let's look in our Gemara now. Okay, what does our Gemara say? Says we're 1, 2, 3, 4 lines up from the bottom of the page. Last 2 words on the line. Bahamas nisin de shochetu. Our Mishnah is about shchita. Va'ama Rav Huna, and Rav Huna says, Dara shchia bar Rav mishmei de Rav asura ba'achilu liyoma. Okay, so we know that position of Rav. The Naspin Chabre and his friends, the other Talmidim sat around the Memor, and they said, Rebbe Yehuda, it must be Rebbe Yehuda. How Rebbe Meir Shari, meaning that if they hold that Rav's position is based on Rebbe Yehuda, who says you have to wait until after Shabbos before you can eat it, who must they hold like? Rebbe Meir, and Rebbe Meir obviously permits it. So how is that possible? Answers the Gemara, the last 4 words on the page. Ki kashari Rebbe Meir, when Rebbe Meir permits it, next page. Kigon shahaya lo. In other words, haya lo means he was in charge of. Doesn't mean he was, right? In other words, if he was, he couldn't shech. We're talking about he was taking care of somebody. Kigon shahaya lo chola mi ba'od yom. Right? In other words, what did he have? He had a guy he was taking care of who was a chola, pikuach nefesh. According to Rebbe Meir, when I looked at this cow was hamburger. I knew that when Shabbos began. So if I knew that when Shabbos began, and I had a right to shech this cow because pikuach nefesh, I could violate Shabbos. So Rebbe Meir said he can eat it and other people can eat it also. Okay. So very nice. That's good for Rebbe Meir. But now, if that's the case of our Mishnah, then how do we explain Rebbe Yehuda? What does Rebbe Yehuda say?
Yeah.
Rebbe Yehuda says you have to wait until after Shabbos.
Right.
If we're dealing with a case of pikuach nefesh, right?
Everyone would agree that.
Right? So shouldn't everybody agree with Rebbe Meir that you can eat it right away? You can eat it, other people can eat it. It's not an issue
No,
Because-
your chola can eat it,
because it's
but you have
not
to wait.
muktzah. What?
No, they're saying the chola can eat it, but you have to wait until after Shabbos.
The chola can eat
You can eat it
but-
right away.
The chola can eat it right away, but
You and everyone else
why?
have to wait out after Shabbos.
Why?
Because you're not sick. You wasn't made done for you.
So what?
So you're not allowed to benefit from that?
Can I shecht a piece of an animal?
No, you shech the whole animal.
Correct. In other words, if I'm shechting for this chola, I have to shecht the whole animal. There's no other way for me to shecht than I can't shecht a piece of the animal. I have to shecht the whole animal, right? And once I shecht the whole animal, so why shouldn't I be allowed to eat it?
Because it's still Shabbos for you. You're allowed to do.
But why shouldn't I be allowed to eat it?
You're allowed to do the malacha that you need to for the chola, but you can't do more than that.
Who said I'm doing any more than that? What am I doing more than
If
that?
you're eating the food,
I shechted it already. It's done. I shechted it. It was completely mutter for me to shecht.
right, but the eating
And I
part-
couldn't shecht.
You weren't going to eat it. The sick was going to eat it.
No, but the next
No, but-
part is.
No, but
you
why
can eat
can't?
it, anyone
No,
else
Rebbe
can eat it.
Meir. But according to Rebbe Meir, I can eat it
No,
also.
no.
Why can I eat it? Why can I eat it? I can eat it.
Because I have the intention of the sick.
That's the question Elliot is asking. Elliot's saying, wait a second, I shechted it for this chola, so why
I'm allowed to
can't
drive
I?
back home from the hospital,
why
but
can
I
I
can't
eat it?
like
So
stop
the
off
answer-
at ShopRite.
So the answer is, I can eat it because it's impossible to shecht a piece of the animal. In other words, the only kind of shechita that I can do is to shecht the whole animal. Right? In other words, I either shecht. It's like being a little bit pregnant. You can't be a little
No,
bit
but the
pregnant.
eating part.
Right? No. But what's the isser in eating? What's the isser in eating?
If it's kosher, it's kosher.
What's
No, but
what's
if
what's
you're
usser?
cooking, you're doing the malacha.
Well, nobody's cooking. We're not cooking. We're not talking about cooking here. You're eating it raw. Right, but even if you were, in other words, let's not involve cooking because it will just
Okay.
complicate it. Let's just talk about
You're doing
shechting.
okay.
Right,
If
I
you're gonna put-
shechted. I
right,
shechted for this chola.
Right. So if I'm giving Simon food, God forbid he's sick, he needs 4 ounces of that food. So I cut off 4 pieces of meat and then have to soak
You
this
cut off
meat
4 ounces of meat from where?
from the dead animal. that I
Okay,
shechted.
is the animal?
Is lying there dead. But
Animal is
took
lying there
Right.
dead.
So I took the portion for Simon. I have to then soak and salt it.
No, you don't if you're not cooking it.
You
No,
have
he
to-
can eat it be'umtza.
You can eat it raw.
Right? Remember we spoke about eating it raw. You could eat it be'umtza. You could eat
You
it
only have to
be'umtza.
soak and salt it if you're cooking it. Yes.
Okay.
You can eat it be'umtza. Right? We don't have to write dam hanivlo. We had you asked that question. We had that whole process. Right? So what I'm saying to you, Elliot, is it's a good question. However, there's no such thing as shechting a piece of the animal.
But the butchering part of it and the cutting part, that's extra.
So what's the butchering part on Shabbos? What's the violation of it? What's the butchering part on Shabbos?
It's basically there would be no prohibition. That's what you do like sometimes.
No
like,
what?
No prohibition against would be doing that.
Correct.
All you're doing is taking out the.
Can you cut
and
raw
the
meat on
nerves.
Shabbos?
Yeah, you can cut meat on Shabbos.
Can you cut raw meat on Shabbos? Of course you can.
All you have
Cut
to
raw
do is
fish,
take
you
out.
cut raw
All you have
meat.
to do is take out the nerves of the chayla. Then.
Right? You can cut raw meat on Shabbos, not a problem. And since it's impossible to shecht, the expression which we're going to come across in a few minutes, right, is that you can't possibly get a kizayis of this animal without shechting the whole animal. There's no, it's either shechted or it's not shechted, all or nothing. It's either shechted or it's not shechted. So that's the answer to your question. But before we get to that question, the Gemara says, okay, so now we understand why does Rebbe Meir?
You're separating. You're separating the good from the bad. You're pure.
Why are you separating the good from the bad?
They're not.
If you're
First of
butchering,
all, you're allowed to
separate
separate
the good from the bad.
You're allowed to take the good from the bad.
But there's no other malachot involved in preparing the animal because they're.
What do you mean
also not-
preparing the animal? What do you do? You're
Take the
cutting it.
hides
You're
off.
cutting into the flesh, and you're cutting yourself a piece of flesh.
You're taking hides off.
Who says you have to take the hide off? Make a cut like this. Make a cut like this, and cut in between. You don't have to take the hide off. Okay. And I hear what you're saying. You're trying to remember. We're
And
not.
all these other malachot that were done. In the
There
Mishnah,
are other malachos that can theoretically be involved in this, but you can also eat the meat without getting involved in any other isur d'oraisa.
Okay.
Right? That's what basically what we're saying here. So back to what we're saying. So, okay, so we understand this Mishnah. We understand how Rebbe Meir could allow you to eat right away and other people to eat right away. How is that? That's a case where there was a chola under your care and he needed the meat. And since he needed the meat, you knew going into Shabbos that you were going to shech this animal. So the animal's not muktzah. Like the animal's not muktzah for you, the animal's not muktzah for anybody else. And You can eat it and everybody else can eat it. Okay. Who disagrees with Rabbi Meir? Rabbi Yehuda. So what's Rabbi Yehuda? Right? We just went out on a limb, you'll pardon me, to explain this Mishnah in a very particular circumstance so that Rabbi Meir makes sense. But what are we going to do now with Rabbi Yehuda? Because what does Rabbi Yehuda say? Rabbi Yehuda says you have to wait until after Shabbos. So what is Rabbi Yehuda's position? Says the Gemara, the last two words on the top line of Tesvav Amud Beis. Ihochi, if this is the case, if that's how you want to establish the Mishnah, says the Gemara, my taima the Rabbi Yehuda. How do we explain Rabbi Yehuda, who says you have to wait? The Aser, he answers it, right? So how can Rabbi Yehuda say it's no good? I mean, how can anybody say it's no good? Right? Rabbi Meir seems to make absolute sense here. So the Gemara says, what case are we dealing with? So we're going to refine the case even more. How are we refining the case even more? Kigon shahaya lo chola v'hivri. What happened? So the case is as follows. The case is, I had a chola in my care. And when Shabbos began, I knew that this chola was going to need meat. So when I looked at this animal in my backyard, it was hamburger to me. There's no muktzah, right? Comes Shabbos, what happens? I shech this animal. Right? Comes Shabbos, I shech this animal. And then what happens?
He gets better.
The person doesn't eat it.
So it's inverting.
Right? The person doesn't eat it, right? That's how we understand the case. Kigon shahaya lo chola, he had a chola, v'hivri, right? And he became healthy again. Look at Rashi. Rashi is the last Rashi on the fourth line down from the top. V'hivri hayom b'Shabbos, right? And he became well on Shabbos. Isser muktzah leka, right? There's no isser muktzah anymore. Why? Because when Shabbos began, how sick was this guy?
Very sick.
Very sick. He was dying. Right? He was dying. So when I looked at Bessie was hamburger. There's no Indian of muktzah. Right? Hilkach l'Rebbi Meir the lav mashve shogeg the Isser Shabbos shari. In other words, what happened? According to Rabbi Meir, according to everybody, here's the case now. We've refined it even more. We refined it to say, all right, we're talking about somebody who's shechted b'shogeg. Then we said, no, we're talking about somebody who had a chola in his care and had a shech for that chola. And then we refined the case even more. What are we really talking about? The Mishnah is really talking about this teeny tiny particular case of a chola. I had a chola, right? Hang on a second. I had a chola. The chola was very sick when Shabbos began.
Got better.
There's no isser of muktzah. And then I shechted the animal and he got better. I shechted the animal and he got better. Okay? Now, what would Rebbe Meir say under those circumstances? Rebbe Meir would say, listen, when you shechted that animal, not a problem. You shechted it. You thought what you were doing was certainly appropriate. There's no additional isser of muktzah. You can eat it and other people can eat it. What does Rabbi Yehuda say? Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, once this guy gets better, the shechita that you did was b'shogeg, right? You shechted this b'shogeg. Granted, Rabbi Meir, you don't want to find anybody because they shechted b'shogeg, but I do, right? What's my fine if you shech b'shogeg? You have to wait till after Shabbos. In other words, everybody now agrees that the case is the same case.
Now, Rabbi, what about if the opposite situation? The person is fine, he becomes chole during Shabbos.
Person is fine, he becomes chola during Shabbos, you shech the meat, he can
You had
eat
no
it.
intention of shechting from
He
before.
can eat it, Nobody else can eat it.
He can eat it, nobody else. Okay.
Why can he eat it? Why can you shecht it? Pikuach
Because
nefesh.
chola.
Why can he eat it? Pikuach nefesh. Why can no one else eat it? Muktzah. Nobody else could eat it because when Shabbos began, you weren't looking at that animal
No.
for shecht. Okay?
But
Wait,
afterwards,
let's
yes.
Doesn't matter. Everything goes by what happens when Shabbos begins.
Let's say
So
that
afterward,
it's
you-
our same case, and then he gets better, but then he becomes sick again. Like he's on and off. Like what happens then? Does that change
I mean,
the status of
you
the
could-
photo?
Zach, you could keep asking the question, right? He got better, and then he got worse, and then he got better, and then he got worse, right?
Yeah.
So we would
So
apply.
would that change the status, or does it?
It would change the status depending upon when you shechted it. Okay, so that's the case. Everybody agrees that's the case. You had a chola under your care when Shabbos began. No muktzah issue. You shechted on Shabbos because he was so sick. No isser of shchita. He got better before he ate the meat. He got better before he ate the meat. Rabbi Meir says, no, it's okay. You can eat it, and he can, and everybody else can eat it also. All right? There's no isser of muktzah, and there's no problem with the shchita, because when you did the shchita, you had a reason for doing the shchita. Rabbi Yehuda comes along and says, no, you're right, there's no muktzah, but there is a problem of shchita b'shogeg. And my position when somebody violates Shabbos b'shogeg is, you have to wait till after Shabbos. You're not allowed to derive any benefit from it on Shabbos. So the machlokes here really is in this one point of whether you're allowed to derive any benefit from a malacha b'shogeg on Shabbos. According to Rabbi Meir, yes, you can. According to Rabbi Yehuda, no, you can't. And that's how our Gemara resolves the Mishnah. Right? So this Mishnah that we started with, Hashochet b'Shabbos, that we were thinking was talking about it, we whittled it down to this very particular case. And now we understand why Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir disagree with each other. And it's all over the principle of whether or benefit from a malacha b'shogeg b'Shabbos.
Now we have the short over here.
Okay.
So we made sense of this. We made sense of this. But we have this, and we have this, and we have this. These go hand in hand. So when does this fall into place and this fall into place?
Which ones are you talking about?
Rameir, if it's bemazed.
No, we know what bemazed is. Bemazed means you bemazed. Bemazed means you deliberately violated Shabbos. You had no good reason to do it. You
it doesn't have to
deliberately
do with
violated
the case
Shabbos.
that we're talking.
No, the case we're talking about is
in
only up here. These three are the case where 1, 2, 3. These are the three opinions in Bishul that would transfer over to our particular case, the way we've narrowed it down of Hashochet. Okay, I really want to try to get to the Mishnah, so let's keep going. Let's start the Mishnah. Let's keep going. Okay. So third line. Kigon shahaya lo chole v'hivri v'chihada amar Rav Acha bar Ada amar Rav v'amri la amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Ada amar Rav. There was different, there were different traditions as to who said this. Everybody agrees in the end. Rav said it, which is what? Hashochet lechola b'Shabbos. What about this case that Rav said? Hashochet lechola b'Shabbos. Aser lebari. Right? A person who shechs for a chola on Shabbos, a chola is fine, but a healthy person cannot eat from it. Hamavasha lechola b'Shabbos muter lebari. Right? A person who cooks for a chola on Shabbos, the healthy person can eat from it. How do we explain this? Right? This is, by the way, we've already moved away from our Mishnah. Now we're talking about the statement of Rav. We're trying to explain it. How could it be that if you shecht for a sick person, Rav says a healthy person can't eat it, but if you cook for a sick person, Rav says a healthy person can. My taima. So what's the reason? So the Gemara says, okay, hi ra'oi lachos, v'hai eno ra'oi lachos. Now what? It makes sense, right? Why can a healthy person not eat this animal that you shechted for a sick person? Because when Shabbos began, this was exactly the case that you just asked, right? When Shabbos began, the person wasn't sick. The person wasn't sick, so the animal is muktzah. So for a chola, there's no problem of muktzah, he can eat it. But for a bari, you can't eat it because of muktzah, because of the problem of muktzah. I mean, this is a different case than our Mishnah, so don't get confused. This is a different case than our Mishnah. What about right? And what about the case, why if you cook for the chola, why is the bari allowed to eat it? Because the raw food was not muktzah when Shabbos began. And if the raw food was not muktzah when Shabbos began, and we don't prohibit you from benefiting from an inadvertent malacha, so you could eat it. Okay.
This is according to Rav.
According to Rav, correct. Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa comes along and says, Pa'amim shahashochet mutter. There are times where it's permissible to shecht, which would be what? Kigon shahaya lo chola mi ba'od yom, right? Where there was a sick person mi ba'od yom, meaning what? That he was still. Right, hang on just a second, guys. Excuse me just a second. No, I'm not down the street teaching, but I am teaching. Yes. I don't know why either. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Sorry. Okay, just keep them open. Sorry.
Is the flue open?
The flue is open, yeah. I mean, we had a fire before I left the house. I don't know what you did. Okay. Did Nathan not get in? Did anybody get a text from Nathan?
My phone is up.
Oh, he said just arrived in Montreal. There is a meeting. Okay, guess he didn't get his now. Okay. Okay, so let's go. You know what? I don't want to rush it. We'll pick up here. We're going to meet. We're not going to meet next week. We'll meet in 2 weeks.
Okay. What's
Okay,
next week?
we'll meet next week is January 1st.
Ah.
So we'll meet in 2 weeks. Here in Hashem. Okay.
Rabbi, is this yours?